Millennial what?
Prayer trust.
You are watching us from the last home we've ever owned tonight. Consider
Millennial
yourself
what?
lucky. Same goes for
Millennial
anyone-
who? My name is Lisa and I'm a fucking millennial.
I did not.
Cause we're for real, we made it out some shit. For real. Yeah, you know we run the world, right?
Saying in Tennessee, I know it's in
Just want
Texas,
y'all to know
probably
that.
Tennessee, this just fooled me once.
That don't even sound right. That don't even sound like me. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed are the individual guest's own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of Millennialz Anonymous or M.A.P.S Media. The material and information presented here is for entertainment purposes only and not meant to malign any person, place, thing, or group. M.A.P.S Media's name and all forms and abbreviation are the property of its owner, and its use does not imply endorsement or opposition of any specific organization, product, or service. This is purely entertainment, folks. Now let's get it. All right, so we have some amazing guests today. We're going to be talking about the dark comedy. It's just in time for Netflix and chill season. We have both director and lead actress of This Sucks. It's a dark comedy about a makeup artist and her roommate and her conservative ex-boyfriend struggling to make it through the quarantine, which I know all of us probably can relate in some way, shape, form, or another. Each of them has a demon that follows them around. And it's the physical manifestation of their depression, which I think we all have a one that follow us now after the quarantine. And we're going to welcome author, writer, producer, director, and co-founder of Tequila Mockingbird Productions, Cameron A. Mitchell. He is accompanied by the beautiful and talented singer, dancer, and actress, April Denise Scott. How are you two doing today?
I'm doing great.
I'm glad to speak with you both. It sounds quite interesting, and given the fact that the whole world experienced a very similar experience all at the same time, I want to ask Cameron. So, where did the idea come from to kind of come up with this film, and why a dark comedy?
So it's actually sort of a weird, long, convoluted road for how this movie came to be. So I'll give kind of the short version. The short version is during the early, 2020 period, I was struggling with a lot of things. I was depressed. I was upset. I got really sick. I had a really, really bad case of COVID that had me down for about 2 months. And then I started going to these protest events, and I was kind of getting to know like Los Angeles activism, LA politics, things like that, and just seeing a lot of the issues that were here that were, kind of being given light in that period of time. And so I started just sort of squirreling on these ideas, and at the same time our makeup artist Sadie moved in with me. She was my new roommate, and she was showing me her portfolio of all these demon creatures that she'd done, and so I kind of had that in my head. And an actress friend reached out, and she said she was looking to see if we were doing any productions or anything like that, or if we could potentially shoot like a small scene for her reel. And she and I were talking about what that small scene could be. And I said, well, give me an hour. Let me write something and I'll show you kind of what I had in mind. And so I wrote this scene where this character is sort of doom scrolling on her phone, listening to the news. She looks down, she's out of toilet paper. She looks up and this red hand gives it to her, and it's this demon. And that ultimately became one of our opening scenes, was that little scene that I had written initially for this other thing entirely that ended up not happening. But everything kind of came together with Sadie's makeup, and we had this location, and I had this idea for, these people in this house, because that's kind of what everybody was doing. We were all just sitting inside, and everything just sort of came together from there.
Yes, and I think we all had the same issue with the toilet paper. It was like we all had.
I was not fully conscious during that period, but I remember talking about it.
Sorry, we could laugh about it now, but
yes, I didn't die, so it's funny now.
Oh,
yeah,
gosh.
we can laugh about it now, but then it was a whole thing. So I do want to kind of elaborate on that a little bit. Can you explain the film in and of itself? Who is the film following, and kind of like lay it out for the audience?
Yeah, sure. So April here plays Jess, who is our main character. And she's a makeup artist. She wants to be an influencer. She has this We don't say YouTube, but it's essentially YouTube. She has this YouTube following where she does these makeup tutorials to talk about these creatures and designs and stuff that she makes. And a lot of what Jess has been experiencing at the start of the film is kind of similar to what I experienced. She was also very sick. She was also kind of horrified by a lot of the stuff that would happen at these protest events. And so she changes her instead of talking about makeup, she starts talking about social justice things and activism and stuff like that. And at the start of the film, she's in this very deep, deep, deep hole of depression. She can't get out of bed. She doesn't want to do the dishes. One of her she lives with her two best friends, and one of them goes back to their hometown, Chicago, because of the pandemic. And this other girl moves in, and Jess does not like this other girl because Carly is very kind of blissfully clueless and oblivious, and she's very, very kind of on the surface. She seems very simple, and obviously there's a lot more to her, and they eventually do connect in a way, but Jess is really struggling, and so she has this demon that follows her around, and he's always there, and he's always saying, oh, you're gaining weight, and oh, you're stupid, and all these like horrible things. It's basically the voice inside her own head. And he happens to look like her conservative ex-boyfriend, Jake. He's played by the same actor, Michael Hooper. And so we see Jake a few times throughout the film just as himself, and we see kind of what his life is. And that connects us to this demon that's following her around and kind of explains why he looks like her ex-boyfriend.
Awesome. So I want to ask Miss Scott. So I was taking a look at your Instagram, and I believe this may be like your first lead role. What drew you to the role of Jess?
Well, I guess the fact that it was so relatable. She's mixed like I am. The story seemed like it was meant for me.
It was.
Yeah, being a Black woman, it has its struggles within itself, but I think being mixed is a different experience, especially if you're being raised by the non-Black side.
Okay.
It can be tough. It can be hard because you don't have that sense of a community, even though in your core, in your being, what's right and what's wrong. So, but you're being raised otherwise, to think otherwise. It causes a lot of insecurities. And, I can relate to the relationship she has with her mother. Her mother was brought up to think one way because my mother is South Korean, and Jess's mother is Caucasian, and they have a certain way of thinking, and they love their babies like my mom loves me, and Jess's mom loves her, but it's fear of it's. I like to say that it's kind of, they didn't really know what they were getting themselves into having Black babies in America. They didn't really know what they were getting themselves into. So I think a lot of forgiveness has to happen because there's a lot of resentment based on that. But the forgiveness has to come from just realizing that her mom just is doing the best she can with what she has, So it was very, very relatable. And also the relationship with her ex-boyfriend. I mean, I went through the same thing where I was in a biracial relationship, and it was tough because there are things that my partner didn't notice that I would tell him, and he would think it's all in my head and downplay it. And so those things can cause insecurities when you don't have a support system around you that can understand what you're going through. Yeah, it can cause a lot of mental health issues. So I can understand what Jess was going through. So I felt like I had to do it. I had to.
Was there a bit of an adjustment since you guys, the both of you, it was a 9-day? It was quite fast. So for you to this your first, what was that like for the both of you?
Wow. Okay. So where do I start? Okay. Luckily, I really do want to thank life or God or, because I was built for it in a way because I'd been in performing arts since I was like 5. So I know what it's like to be on set for long days, and you have to sacrifice your time and basically stop your life to be on set. So luckily I kind of had a mental idea of what I was getting myself into, but it's still grueling because being an actor, it takes all of your energy. You can't be on autopilot. You have to be very present and aware, mentally, physically, spiritually, in every way. So it can be tough to have to produce that constant energy on, like, I mean, how long, Cameron, how long were we on set? What, like, how long were our days? I don't even remember. It was a blur.
So it was a 9-day shoot. It was. I actually lived at the house during the shoot, and so
Oh, that's right.
the day before, I think, or maybe even the day before that, I can't remember exactly, but I kissed my cats goodbye and I drove up to Santa Clarita and I had a little bag packed and I just stayed in one of the rooms up in the house because it was our producer Teresa's house. And she was moving back into it at the end of that month, and so it just happened to be empty. So it was like, oh, okay, so we have this house available. But each day, I mean, the shoot days, I'm actually pretty proud because we have a really great team that we've been working with for a long time now at Tequila Mockingbird, and we went over a few days, but never for very long. I think our longest day was, I think, like 13 hours or so, 13 and a half maybe, and that was because of that demon makeup took a lot of time. But the non-shoot parts, that demon makeup took a lot of time, and so there were several days where I think you had to come in super early on your demon day, April. I know Michael did a couple times, and so I rolled out of bed at 3 a.m. Sadie was our makeup artist, was also sitting in the house, and she did the same. And then our assistant makeup, Nicole, would show up at like 3:45, and then the actor would show up at 4. And then, we'd be shooting at 9 or something like that. And so it was long days. And then we'd go until, the typical 12 hours, sometimes a little longer. But we never went, we didn't have any of these like crazy 15, 17-hour shoot days. We wanted to make sure everybody had decent turnaround time. And so we were doing, some of our days we'd start at 10 and end at 10. And things like that. So it's like we had to make some compromises with the shot list, and we had to make some changes as we were going. But that's always been the case for every project I've ever worked on. So I'm pretty happy with what we were able to do and what the team was able to do.
Awesome. I can imagine with the makeup, they probably found that red makeup and crevices in their face, probably even to this day.
We're at the house, Teresa still will send pictures sometimes and be like, I think Michael walked through this hallway because there's a red.
I'm still trying to get it out of some of my clothes. It transfers.
Oh, yeah. No, we were finding it in the wardrobe, too. Like, we had these special sweaters that we had to be very careful with because they would get red. And then we have all this like red stuff all over the sweaters. And it's like, well, how do we get this out by 9 a.m?
I could imagine. That sounds so grueling, but you actually do like Cameron, you have worked on horror films. Like, how much of that did you put into, although this is, more of a comedy, how much of that did you actually put into this film?
A decent amount. I love horror films, and I think a lot of people who know me are kind of surprised that as my first feature, this isn't a horror film. But I really love the monsters, and I'm really, really happy because our sound designer, Anita, and our composer, Charlotte, the three of us had this mission. We wanted to make it seem like, in the beginning, it's a horror film. And so for the first 10 minutes or so, you really don't know what's happening because you've seen that Jess has this demon. You've seen there's something going on, but we don't really explain what. And then kind of the twist comes along that, oh, it's kind of a silly comedy and he's not, he's a monster, but not really in the same sense of the monster. So I got to put a little bit of my love for horror in there, and I'm pretty happy with that.
Awesome. Because I was wondering that. I was like, I wonder if there's any horror.
When I was talking about the sweaters, Andrew, one of our other producers, is here, and he ran this over. This is our Christmas sweater.
Oh, yeah. You did not bring that to show.
Yeah. So we had 4 of each one, and some people took them home at the end of the set. So this was.
I still have mine.
This is awesome. I love the one that you had.
I should go grab mine. That was my. What does mine have? Ghosts on it. I gotta wear it. The holidays are coming around.
Yeah.
Yeah. See?
Halloween combo sweater.
The gift that keeps on giving. You can wear it always. Now, Jess, you mentioned this, or you hit on this a little bit, since it sounds like there's some social justice in the film.
Yes, very
As
much so.
a Black and Korean woman, how important was it for you to portray a woman of color in a role of vulnerability, which is not something that we often see. This is a role that we don't often see women of color play. So how important was that?
It's so funny you ask it that way because that's exactly why I thought it was very important because we don't see a Black woman struggling through mental health. I mean, to be honest, I've gone through my own mental health issues. I still am, and some things you're just born with. And but being a Black woman, even though I was raised by my Korean side of the family, I grew up in a poor Black community. So based on where you live, that's the place you're going to go to school. So my school was pretty hood. I'll just say that.
Okay.
And when you're going through mental health struggles, to me, what I noticed in my school, not speaking for all schools, so this is my school at the time, if you're someone of color, they automatically assume you're stupid, or you're not trying hard enough, or you're not applying yourself, or it's a behavior quality, and nobody actually takes the time to think, well, she's showing up for all of her classes, she's participating, she's very polite, she's sweet, so why is she not getting good grades? Like, why is she struggling? Nobody will really look into that. And as I got older and meeting new people, like going to college and working different jobs, I had friends that were Caucasian, and seeing that the way we grew up, it's completely different.
Mhm.
I would see they would talk to me in their community how they would always have psychological help growing up as kids, and they almost had too much access to things. um, I've met a lot of people that said that they were medicated at a young age because their parents thought they had this, that, and the third. And it's crazy how it's so open in that community. But our community, even in the Korean community, we're not taught to look into mental health. And I think because we ignore it, we actually pass down mental health issues genetically.
Mhm.
Um, so that's why I felt like it had to be addressed. Everyone's struggling with something. Everyone needs help figuring it out. And I think in my Asian community, and definitely how I was raised by a military Black father, it's you know turn off your feelings. Do what you have to do. that
Mhm.
that doesn't make your feelings go away. That doesn't make them go away. Suppressing them, they'll come out somewhere in an unhealthy way. And that's what I experienced growing up is people that were supposed to look after me unleashing their mental health in unhealthy ways because they were taught not to deal with it. That's something that I did not want for myself. I don't want for possibly my future kids. So that's something that it needs to be out there. It has to. It's okay. It's okay to get help if you need help, because it's helped me a lot. I've been in therapy for years. I've done what I've had to do to get to know myself and what's really going on with me. And I can honestly say at this point, based on, I wouldn't say I've had like a hard childhood, but I had a rough childhood. And
Okay.
I would say that there's no way I could be okay right now without getting psychological help. There was no way. There was a point where I hit depression really hard, and there was no way, nothing else was going to help me until I got actual help. So I just don't want the people in my community to get to the point where I was at and feel like they can't go to that resource. You can. It's okay. It just wasn't given to us when we were young. It's built
A-
that way.
Agreed. Agreed. So, Cameron, was that a choice, like a deliberate choice to find a person of color to put in this role?
Yeah, I mean, it ultimately, I mean, at the most, I guess, basic level, the woman who reached out to me initially when I first conceived of this scene, she was a Black woman, and so that was how it started. But as I was writing the film and as I was kind of, putting everything together, there's so much to do on a big level and on a small level, as far as mental health, like April was just saying, and on, so much in this country is broken on a bigger
Mhm.
level. And so much of that is related to race and racism. And it just kind of seemed, as I was going along, it just sort of seemed sort of like the right thing to do to keep this character as a Black woman to kind of tell the most authentic story we could tell. And, April was super, super key to that because obviously I don't have that experience. I've not lived that same life. I haven't experienced those same things to the same degree. And so she and I had a lot of conversations after she came on, just to sort of make sure that, like, you know, down to lines of dialogue. Is this something how Jess would say it? To the bigger things, you know, is this how Jess would feel? Is this what her mom would do? Is this, you know, I wanted to make sure that we were telling the best story that we could tell, and that we were being authentic to that. And I think we pulled it off. At least I hope. Knock on wood.
Oh, it was a great experience. And I feel like the way the process was between you and I, Cameron, is like, that's the way it should be. It's just like, if you're not that person, if you haven't experienced those things, people have to do their research. They can't assume. So I loved our process. He always wanted to make sure, is this realistic to your own experience? Because I just can't relate. I need to understand, you know, that I loved that. That made it so much more comfortable for me to express what's really going on deep down. Because, I mean, nowadays, it's so microaggressive that it's easy to go right over people's heads. And it's just like all of those little things have to be pointed out and noticed. And I understand, like, having my friends, my Caucasian friends, the world was taught to tell them yes. And it's hard for them to see anything other than that. It's been, what is the word, cloaked over for them. So I see the innocence in that too. But the fact that they have to realize that too. It's all about awareness. That's all it's about. Is just like, be aware of your position and the fact that you don't understand somebody else's position, but you want to.
Yeah,
you know,
that's all we can. That's all we really can do, and that's all we really can ask. But speaking of which, because Cameron, you guys have been able to help so many, you know, content creators, and with Tequila Mockingbird Productions, can you tell us a little bit about how that got started and what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's Tequila Mockingbird is me and two partners, Andrew and Teresa. And we got started a few years back. We did a project together. We liked working together. So we figured, okay, let's do more. And so we did the 48-hour film competition where we needed a team name. And I came up with Tequila Mockingbird Productions. And that ended up really kind of, the name itself really kind of resonated with people. People laughed. People thought it was funny. People remembered it. And so, you know, moving forward, as we would do short films and things like that, we kind of kept that name, and we started building a logo and building a brand. And we would notice at film festivals that, you know, people would see it and they'd laugh, or they go, oh, Tequila Mockingbird, that's funny. And so when it came time to start a proper production company, we just sort of figured, well, you know, it's not broken, so let's keep it. Let's be Tequila Mockingbird Productions, because we were moving towards a point where we were getting ready to do a feature. And we knew that you needed some kind of, you know, you need legal backing, basically. You need that LLC or a corporation to get that done, because when you're talking features, you're talking money in and money out. And for something like that, you don't want to be personally liable. And so for a while, we were just kind of doing what we could do to build up our own portfolio, but also, you know, we really enjoy helping new creators and sort of showing them the ropes about the very basic levels of filmmaking, because a lot of people don't have that experience and they don't really know. And, you know, you can watch a movie and think, oh, that's pretty easy to do. But then the smallest things are so hard, like, you know, sound design, footsteps, for instance. No one thinks about the footsteps, but there's a lot of work that goes into creating sounds. Or in the edit, you know, we have a scene where two characters walk past each other, and we had to really finesse that both on set shooting it and in the edit to make it look natural. And so it's just these small things that you don't really think about. And so we took a lot of pride in taking on these clients who were first-time filmmakers, or maybe they'd made something before, but now they were kind of ready for something a little bigger, and helping, you know, giving them the support they needed to tell their stories. And then this sort of became a natural extension of that, making This Sucks. We're making another documentary right now called Driven, about the bodybuilder Tony Pearson, and my partner Andrew is directing that. And so we're building something. And the goal for me, at least, is to, you know, continue both to make my own projects, but also to help people who, you know, are underserved or underrepresented or having a harder time breaking into the industry, because it's a really hard industry to break into. And, I've been in LA for about 9 years, or a little more than 9 years now, and I'm just now getting to this point where I've made my first, very small independent feature. And so I would love to, pay it forward to the people who both have helped me, but also the people who might need help.
That's awesome. And I was reading about you guys, and you guys have done some really, really awesome things.
Oh,
Can
thank
you
you.
tell us when the film actually will be released? How can people watch it, view it, pay for it, do all of those things?
So the short answer is I don't actually know yet. The slightly
Okay.
longer answer is we are finishing up these last few pieces of post-production. And once it's done, then we're going to try and approach a distribution deal. But because this is my first feature, it's kind of everyone involved, our first feature, we can't have those conversations really until it's done. So I have some pretty high hopes that we're going to be able to put it out in the world and that I'll be able to give you that answer. But right now, we're just kind of nose to the grindstone, finishing up color correction and VFX. Those are our last two things. And then we're going to try and put it out in the world. Because I feel like there's an audience for this movie. There's a lot of different audiences. At the most basic level, like April said, so many people can relate to this, this mental health struggle. And especially, a mental health struggle compounded with everything that's going on in, the last couple years. I feel like there's people who want to watch this movie, and we want to give it to them in such a way that, as many people can see it as possible.
Awesome. Awesome. Definitely. And I want you guys to tell people how they can follow you. I know, April, you dance, and I was looking on your Instagram.
Ridiculous.
You're a
Sorry, sorry.
singer. Can you tell people how they can follow you and support you?
Yes, yes. Thank you so much for that. Yes. If you want to follow me, my Instagram is April Denise Scott. And I just actually opened up a more personal Instagram. So that's just going to be for my performing arts. If you want to see more of my fitness, I'm going to start vlogging, YouTube, because I did a vote on social media and everybody wants to see more of my processes and how things are done behind the scenes. So, I have a more personal Instagram, april.living.life. So yeah, you guys can follow me there if you want to.
Awesome. And Cameron?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram too. I'm at the Communist, which is a very old middle school joke, which I've just been riding into the ground at this point. We also have a Tequila Mockingbird production Instagram. It's called Tequila Mockingbird Prod. And
Okay.
so either one of those you can see. I tend to post more on my personal one as far as updates for the film go. But yeah, feel free to check either of those out.
And your website?
Our website is tequilamockingbird.productions or tmockingbird.com. Either one will take you. I usually use tmockingbird.com. And you can check out a little sliver of the film at thissucksmovie.com.
All right. It sounds good. This sounds like a film that is for everyone. Everyone went through the quarantine. We made it out on the other side, and we all experienced some levels of anxiety, depression, or whatever when we all went through all the things we went through. So make sure you guys check this film out. It's This Sucks, starring Miss April Denise Scott, written and produced and all of the things. I'm just going to say all of the
A lot of
things.
Not all of them. I had some help, but definitely a lot.
Almost.
Mr. Cameron Mitchell. So I appreciate you both for being here, and I will be looking forward to seeing this film.
Thank you for having
Absolutely.
us.
Absolutely. I enjoyed